بهم يا ربنا يسر لنا أمورنا واكشف لنا كروبنا والطف بنا والمسلمين.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our Zawiya Podcast. We're very excited to have recorded our first episode. Inshallah, we hope you guys enjoy. We'll be talking about who we are and discussing the idea of the Zawiya and why we called ourselves the Zawiya Podcast. So inshallah, stay tuned, enjoy the video, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, inshallah, and let us know in the comments for any other future ideas or guests that we can bring on. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you all?
Alhamdulillah.
Mashallah, good. We just we want to speak to everyone today to talk about the Zawiya Podcast. We have got together these beautiful brothers along with myself, and we'll just get straight into it, inshallah. So, Sidi Taha, let's start with yourself.
Just a brief introduction
Yes,
about myself.
please.
Yeah. So I have my ethnic background is from Pakistan, as you guys know. I grew up mainly in Australia, but I think what's slightly different from a lot of my kind of Muslim friends is that I grew up in a very kind of like Aussie public school, co-education, not a lot of kind of Muslim friends in my school. So my background is slightly kind of distanced from that. And then when I went into university, that's where I met a lot of my Muslim friends, and where I started to kind of progress like my identity and my Islamic values, that sort of thing, right? So that's like one aspect to it. The other aspect to it is like in work, I work in the tech field as an AI scientist. Wow. So I'm very interested in the intersection of kind of developing technology, but also like what are the philosophical and ethical implications of that, right? Especially in terms of like the human well-being aspect. And so that's kind of the second thing. What else? I've traveled a lot in my life, so that's kind of I bring different.
You grew up in Oman, if I'm not mistaken.
I spent like 5 to 6 years there when I was a kid.
Mashallah.
But so most of my upbringing was here in Australia.
Mashallah.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'll talk about myself a little
Please
bit.
go ahead.
So, I grew up in the Middle East as well. I grew up in Dubai, actually, and a lot of my time up to sort of high school was spent there. And I moved here as a student, and subhanAllah, like, I thought Islam was just sort of this one direction. Everyone's one type of Muslim, that's it, and then I don't know, people who aren't Muslim. Then I come to university just like you, and I realize there's this whole other world around me, right? Like, and I see how beautifully that can coexist and just make us all a beautiful and strong ummah, basically through our diversity.
That's crazy because you grew up in Dubai, I grew up in Oman. It's like very close together.
Yeah.
And then you came to Melbourne Uni, and I came to Melbourne Uni.
You came to Melbourne Uni too, right?
Interesting.
It's just a shame we didn't cross paths there, but now we're here together. Anyway, so after that, came here, spent a lot of time. I worked in the hospitality industry, started my career there in facilities management, moved on to some big companies after that, in real estate and so on. And now I'm actually going back into the hospitality industry as a manager in that field. So it's been a 10-year career journey that's taken me here. But I don't think that I would have been so successful in my career if not for my spirituality and the mentoring and all that stuff that has happened in the background, which has a lot to do with Azawi and so on, which we'll come into in time.
Inshallah.
Abdurahman.
Yeah, Abdurahman.
Sure. Okay. Bismillah. So yeah, my name is Abdurahman. Where do I begin? So it's got a bit of a journey.
Watch this guy.
So I was born here. Grew up here. Obviously, went to school here. I went to many schools actually. It wasn't until about subhanAllah, I was maybe 17. No, until about 18. I started taking religion a bit seriously. Started active looking for Muslim friends. Alhamdulillah. That's when my first major Muslim kind of friend group started forming. And then from there, it's just a journey and just exploring different, even exploring religiously as well, subhanAllah. So, but basically, subhanAllah, I was just I was always like just interested and fascinated by the truth and just reaching Allah. Like I really just wanted to just find out what is the right thing to do. Like, you know, I just want to worship Allah and just have Him happy to me.
And you're an engineer?
So I was an engineer. Yes, I was an engineer. I studied engineering. I mean, I still am technically. Then, subhanAllah, after working in engineering for a while, I realized it wasn't for me. Then I moved into teaching, subhanAllah.
Wow.
And I really enjoy that, subhanAllah. Teaching really it's got a special place in my heart. And maybe inshallah I'll get back to it, but for now we'll see. But then, subhanAllah, I had an opportunity in my life where I was offered a prison chaplaincy role. So I'm a prison chaplain now, subhanAllah. So it's a bit of a jump, yeah.
So you're engineering the souls of inmates.
Yeah.
I just came out of a job where I was in a prison, you know, not in sort of a mentoring capacity as you, but I've been exposed to that environment.
It's still prison. Still prison.
It's
rough.
It's intense.
It is.
But alhamdulillah.
I think Abdurahman has a very interesting background. You want to mention ethnicity?
No, the mic's in you now. You've got to.
Well, do you want to speak for you? You guys know, but for everyone else, my name is Mehdi. I'm Afghan ethnically, but I was born in Pakistan, and I grew up there, and until maybe 7, 8, and then we moved here. Obviously, I'm not as old as you guys, so there's not much to say, but
that's rude.
Bro, you just made me feel really old now, man.
Just call me uncle now.
Anyway.
You guys had a whole 10-minute introduction, but mine's very brief. I grew up as an aspiring soccer player, so that's what I wanted to do as a career. But that dream never. I'm here now.
You were very close, apparently. You were about to play for Melbourne City, yeah.
I was on trials and stuff, but it's for the junior teams, academies. That was, I couldn't imagine my life without soccer at that time.
Wow.
But alhamdulillah, now we're in a better place. So
wow.
I used to think, subhanAllah, I was like, if I grow up and I'm not a soccer player, like is there gonna be a suicide or this? Like, there's no way.
Whoa, bro, that's very high.
That's all I knew. That's. I mean, at the time I didn't know. I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but
the more you know.
But this is what I was thinking in the future. Let's say 5 years, 10 years from.
The purpose of your life.
That was my purpose.
Being a soccer
That was
player.
my only purpose. That was my only purpose. And
now where do you find yourself?
Now in the Zawiya.
Wow.
Now we're in good company. So I think when I left soccer, I became a little bit practicing. So I asked our current Shaykh, obviously, and for some advice, and it wasn't a recommended thing in general. Just because not because he just wanted me to stop, but it's because the way I described it to him. I said I want to be very practicing. I want to do this, So I guess the lifestyle is it's not the best for that. So a few advices and
it's very interesting. I thought I had a unique perspective that I grew up in in an area which was not that practicing, and then later in life I got more interested in. I thought that was my unique perspective, but I think that's the case with all of you, right?
SubhanAllah. Everyone's got a very unique perspective, SubhanAllah.
So, all from different ethnic backgrounds.
Yes, SubhanAllah.
Abdurahman, you might as well say it.
No, did I mention my ethnic background?
No, you said you were born here and that's it.
Sorry. So I'm
Intrigue
half.
us.
My dad's Bosnian, and my mum's from Yemen.
And
mum's half Yemen, half Somalian, but
it's very interesting.
It's
worth mentioning. Yeah. And I think Karam, you didn't mention, did you?
I'm Sri Lankan, of course, and I've had some really interesting experiences. For example, like one of the reasons we're here together is because we've all sort of met each other in various circles in Melbourne. So we've been going to people's houses, and I've seen you, and I looked at you and I was like, I want to be this guy's friend. How can I be his friend? He just had I had a real draw towards Sidi Taha. I remember that he had this really cool burda book. Like it was like so well wound, and it was leather. I was like,
it's bound in leather.
It's bound in leather. I was like, that is so cool. I just want to be his friend so I can open the book and read it.
Same. I remember seeing the Buddha. I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
The
Look,
leather
it looks
Buddha.
cool, but practically when you have to open it, you have to like unbind the whole book.
But you know, like, yeah, in now mutual friends' homes and things like that, basically seeking knowledge and being in those circles. So I mean, I could say that would be correct for all of us.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And yeah, like in terms of the Zawiya, wow. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to tell you guys
Please,
a little bit about, you know.
Because you've been to a few Zawiya's around the world, haven't you?
Well,
you've been to.
The thing is that I grew up my whole life.
So the topic now is what is a Zawiya?
That's correct.
Okay.
Like I grew up my whole life in the Middle East, not knowing about a Zawiya. Like, what is this thing? Like,
And I think most people have that experience.
exactly. For whatever reason, we knew what a masjid was, but what is a Zawiya? Anyway, long story short, I ended up with actually all of you guys building our Zawiya in Melbourne, our first one in Springvale, right? Like, I remember you were sort of putting up the insulation, you were doing some carpentry work with a few brothers and so on. So my first experience actually with the Zawiya was building our own Zawiya in Melbourne.
That was the first interaction you've ever had with a Zawiya?
That's correct.
I would say the same.
To be very honest with you, bro, like, I remember in university, okay, there were some friends of mine who were, you know, who were part of Zawiyas and things like that, and I used to say to them, this is like 5-6 years ago, bro, could you like introduce me to your Shaykh, you know, and could I like come and meet you and join your dhikr sessions and all this kind, because I knew 5 years into university, or sort of into that time, that there's something there that sort of softens my heart, etc. Like, I want to be part of these circles, and I was friends with these people, but obviously I knew they had something else.
I had the exact same experience.
But then, you know, when I went after it, I was prevented.
Yes.
You
The
started,
same,
same?
Yeah.
Like, you asked people that you knew, okay, and then it's like, oh no, whatever, or there was no outcome, basically. 5 years later, I'm part of building our own Zawiya, right? So
The same people, I think we have mutual friends, right?
think,
That are saying, like, interested in that space.
Yeah.
And to me, I was really interested because these are people who, if you look at their character, there's something very special about them,
yeah.
right? And about how their connection to the deen and their kind of knowledge and ilm.
Yes.
And I was like, what is, you know, so and it was those people, the more I got to know them, they're like, yeah, you know, we go to Zawiyas and, you know, every week or so, and we have nasheeds and dhikr and that sort of thing. So it's interesting. It's the same people that I looked at as well.
But then what happened actually, bro, like, of course, like, I've had my experiences in Zawiya, in our Zawiya, and we built it, and I remember when we were, you know, with our Shaykh and with all of you guys, and we were reading our Quran, listening to Inshad, there was something just so celestial and magical about this place. It was tiny. It was about the size of this room as well, this Zawiya. But like, we managed to fit like 60-70 people in like in there, and I was like, how does this even work, you know? But it worked. And you guys are all vibing with me because you're all realizing the same thing as me. But like, but then all of the international guests that we had, you know, from Syria, from you know, all around the world, munshids and all these people coming into this melting pot. It was just I don't know what word I could say than it was magical.
That's what really shocked me, having these world-renowned munshid and shuyukh coming, because we had the Zawiya for couple months.
A munshid, by the way, they're people who do nasheeds, right?
Yes.
So we had all these world-renowned people coming, even though we opened the Zawiya maybe a few months.
Yeah.
You know?
If I'm not mistaken, it was Sheikh Hamdi Kanja who came first. He was one of the people who actually helped us, like, as part of the opening of the Zawiya, if you remember that.
Yes.
But
and Sheikh Mahmoud Zaitar?
Mansur Zaitar, and also another one. His name is Mu'tasim Billah.
Yes.
These are like world famous nasheeds.
You see on YouTube, it's like
you listen to when you type up Inshad in YouTube, you hear these people, and they came to our Zawiya in Melbourne, the corner of the world. Subhanallah, and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala brought them to us. You know.
You know, fun fact: Zawiya means corner, by the way. Zawiya actually means corner. The linguistic difference. I was looking at it, subhanAllah. Zawiya linguistically means a corner. And they say that what a zawiya in linguistic corner, but what it actually means, like colloquially, is a place established for knowledge, for gatherings of dhikr, for gatherings of remembrance. Basically like a masjid, but more but I guess maybe a place for rest and sleeping as well. So I guess it's like a mini masjid, I guess you can say. But yeah, linguistically, yeah, looking subhanAllah, it's called a corner.
My family had a background in tasawwuf. My family was Shadili, so that's the name of a particular tariqah actually. And for whatever reason, when we moved to the Middle East, we sort of lost that connection. Now, after 2.5 years being in the Zawiya and having an understanding of what we do and all this sort of thing, I went to my home country and my hometown, my town where my mother was born and where she grew up, and that's in Galle in Sri Lanka in the south, and specifically in the fort, which is very rich in culture. Again, another melting pot of a variety of cultures, too many to mention. And for the first time in my life, having been to Galle maybe at least 6 times in my life, the first time in my life I experienced tasawwuf and the Zawiya in my home country.
When was this?
My hometown. This was in towards the end of this year, end of the last year, December.
Oh, so very recent.
And yeah, very recently. And I actually went to a Zawiya. I'm 31 years old. First time in my life going into a Zawiya in my home country, in my hometown. It's a very, very special experience. Because I think when you connect to your roots, something lights you up spiritually, because it's like when you eat your mother's food and sort of there's nothing like your mother's food.
Absolutely.
There's nothing like
it's really interesting, right? So your first ever experience in a Zawiya was building it, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then afterwards you went overseas, and then you realized how common and how important Zawiyas are in institutions and
100%.
Traditional historical Islamic communities.
100%.
Usually it's the opposite, right? Usually people see and in my case it was the opposite. So like we'd hear about it, like intellectually had an idea about it. The first time that I came across a Zawiya, practically entered a Zawiya, is in Istanbul, in Turkey, right? So Turkey is such a beautiful country. It's
Wait, this was before you joined our Zawiya, right?
Yeah, this was before I had seen a Zawiya in Australia.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So I think I came from Dubai, right? And in Dubai, you look at the skyline and you see these kind of modern, trendy buildings.
Concrete jungles.
You're in awe of these buildings.
Yes,
They're
yes,
actually,
yes.
they look very interesting. But then when you go to Istanbul, you're in awe. But you're in awe of all of these mosques, right, in the skyline. These traditional mosques. You have the Blue Mosque, you have the Hagia Sophia. This kind of real, like, beautiful, aesthetic,
Mashallah,
artistic Islamic tradition.
Mashallah.
And that's what you're in awe of. As opposed to, like, trendy, kind of modern big buildings.
Mashallah.
That Istanbul and Turkey bring a really different vibe. And then when you go to these mosques, like you go to like the Blue Mosque or Hagia Sophia, they do like a little bit of dhikr here and there. They sprinkle it like before salah or after salah, or even when you're doing like your tasbih, like subhanallah and alhamdulillah, like they announce it, right?
Yeah. I noticed they did that here too in the Turkish mosques, right?
Yes,
After
yes.
Isha or after Fajr,
Yes,
they'll do like a salawat.
I love it.
Yes.
So I loved it. I was like,
Yes.
man, this is so cool, right?
Yes.
And then kind of I was going around Istanbul with one of my friends, and we went to a particular area called Fatih, which is like it's traditionally like a very Muslim conservative area, in stark contrast to a lot of the rest of Istanbul, which is like extremely kind of secular and modern. And within this area where they've preserved Islam and they're rooted in Islamic knowledge, there's a few zawiyas that we went to, and that was the first time that I went into a zawiya, and they were reading the one of the greatest poems in Islamic history, the Qasida Burda,
Mashallah,
right?
Mashallah.
Which is read across the world.
Yes, Mashallah.
But and I was familiar with this poem, but I've never seen it being read by 100+ people all together, passionately reading it and singing it, and this feeling of love and electricity, and it gave me goosebumps.
SubhanAllah.
Like I've never experienced something like that before. And so when I came back to Australia, one of the first things I was interested in is where can I get a similar experience you know, but
Chasing that high.
locally, yeah.
Is it safe to say you found it now?
Of course,
Allah.
yeah. It's no
Allah.
longer is it a lifetime,
Yes.
like
yes,
once in a
yes,
lifetime
yes.
experience, but now it's a weekly
part of the-
necessity.
It's part of the fabric of your life.
Of course,
Allah.
yes.
Mashallah, mashallah. Mashallah, mashallah.
And I guess it's a very privileged position to be in that sort of state. I don't think, if you compare yourself before joining the Zawiya versus now, what kind of a person you are with your commitment and with your,
Yeah.
your
Definitely.
you've mentioned this to me before.
Like, every week we're working every day, especially like in kind of modern society. There's a lot of you go to work, you study, you want to save money, buy a house, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But you can kind of lose yourself a little bit. You can get too caught up in the hustle. Sometimes you need to rebase yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise your soul just becomes further and further away.
Not sometimes, I think frequently. Every time you get the opportunity, you need to be surrounded and with good, and because you lose it so quickly. Here, like I think everyone experienced, maybe had at least a glimpse of it, but you're in a masjid, you want to do all the good things. As soon as you step out of the masjid, it's back to the same old, So, but the more you go to the masjid, the less you want to do that bad or whatever it is, the
Basically,
wrong
the
deed.
more
Yeah.
connected you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more connected you are to the people of Allah,
Yes.
the scholars,
Yes.
the ulama, the people who have preserved this deen,
The awliya.
the awliya. It's a lucky place to be.
So did you ever encounter a Zawiya before, or did you have...
No,
similar
I had the
experience?
same experience with Karam, subhanAllah. I had no idea what a Zawiya was. I'm building it. I've got no idea what I'm building, man. Okay. We're just going to build this place where we're going to do dhikr. Alright, cool, man. I'm just going to... Yeah, I'll help paint. I'll help, things, set it up, subhanAllah. And then, then after it was complete, subhanAllah, it's a place where I found peace, subhanAllah. It's,
That's really interesting, because I don't think... Most people have not had that experience, right? Most people have experienced it internationally and
I had no idea
experienced
that
it
was
somewhere, and then maybe part of building it is...
I had no idea. And also, and the thing with both my parents as well, Zawiyas, from that side in Bosnia, they're called tekkiyas or tekkers.
Yes.
So that's widespread in Bosnia. And I had no idea about tekkiyas or Zawiyas in Bosnia. I've got there's one in my local cities, apparently. I had no idea until recently. And where mum's from, both in Somalia and Yemen, it's full of Zawiyas, subhanAllah. So even coming from that background, I had no idea, subhanAllah.
That's the kind of important thing about traveling, right? Because you get out of your bubble, and you, especially to lands where there's a rich tradition and history of what was Islam like before modernity, and how did communities, how were communities set up, right?
How did communities even, subhanAllah, Sayyidi, how did communities maintain their identity through practice? Praying 5 times a day is a basic, people should be doing it. Reading Quran, people should be doing it. There's no praying tahajjud, people should be doing it. May Allah make it easy for us to do it more and more. But we're not talking about the basics. We're talking about going above and beyond, pushing the boundaries in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's basically what happens in a Zawiya. It's just a spiritual commitment to excellence.
And you realize that when you go to these lands with rich Islam, you realize this was a fundamental aspect of kind of keeping the tradition and kind of reviving or maintaining the Muslim community.
Absolutely.
And this is why it's very interesting that in Istanbul, the areas where they've maintained Islam and the importance of Islam, despite what's happening afterwards, there's Zawiyas there. And then I went to Pakistan after that, right? Same thing. Throughout the subcontinent, Zawiyas are all,
subhanAllah,
throughout the subcontinent.
Did you attend any of the gatherings in the Zawiyas there in Pakistan?
I went to one Zawiya there, and there was basically people in the corner that were they had a big, subha, right?
Tasbih,
It was really big. I think it was
1,000.
I think it was 1,000.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
And but it was they were silently doing the salawat, right? And there was maybe 3 or 4 of them. And the person who was showing me around said, in this Zawiya, we do salawat 24/7.
Subhanallah.
So what does that mean? It's they do shifts basically. They have 3 or 4 people
Subhanallah.
that do salawat for like 6 hours, 4 hours, and then they switch, and then they switch,
Subhanallah.
and it never stops.
Subhanallah.
So 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Subhanallah.
They're doing salawat, and I think it's either the only place or the one of the only places in the world where salawat is going on 24/7.
Can you just imagine the amount of light that is descending on that? Ajib.
No, not even that, subhanAllah. Just it makes you realize, subhanAllah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's really assigned people to worship Him 24/7, subhanAllah. Allah will actually station someone. Your job now is to do dhikr for 24 hours a day. That's his job, and that person is completely satisfied and just doing dhikr all day. Another person, the job, subhanAllah, Allah might make them, subhanAllah, the people depend on them, so then they need to work, for example. Like most of us, they need to go out and get our daily bread, for example. That's their role that Allah's given them, subhanAllah. But to think and imagine, subhanAllah, that throughout the world you will always find at every second someone is actually there worshipping Allah. There isn't a millisecond that goes by without someone worshipping Allah in some way, shape or form, subhanAllah.
And then the Kaaba, of course, like in Mecca and Medina, right?
Oh man, but you find people doing dhikr, you find someone just staring straight, subhanAllah. Even looking at the Kaaba is a worship, right? Some people, they're just hours on and just staring at the Kaaba, subhanAllah. Allah really just, station people with different roles just to worship Him, subhanAllah.
It's really the city that never sleeps, right?
Yeah,
like,
it is.
New York City, the city that never sleeps.
Sidi Mehdi, I want to ask you something. After hearing everything we've said about the Zawiya, our Zawiya, like where we sort of developed spiritually, could you please elucidate why we call this show
That's a
the
big
Zawiya?
word, man.
Elucidate.
Elucidate.
I'm just using
I'm too young for these words.
I'm so sorry. I know I used a complicated.
ChatGPT, what is it?
Tell us what or why we call this show the Zawiya Podcast. After everything you've heard,
I think that it's just who we are, isn't it?
Mm.
Zawiya, we're so connected to. We've explained what Zawiya is. Abdurahman mentioned that it's linguistically it's the corner. But yeah, so we use it for a place of dhikr, place of gathering for classes, learning knowledge. So for all these types of khair, I think it was, in my opinion, I think it was only right to pick the word Zawiya and call it the Zawiya Podcast. It's been taking place in the Zawiya as well.
MashaAllah.
What's your experience in the Zawiya though? Yeah, and I was gonna ask everyone. I was gonna ask subhanAllah. Okay, so we have a masjid. We can pray in a masjid. We can do dhikr in a masjid. Everything we do in a Zawiya, we can do in a masjid. So why do we have Zawiyas? And also I want to ask is, how do you guys feel when you're in a masjid versus in the Zawiya? Do you guys feel different? Do you feel the same? How do you feel, Mehdi?
For me personally, I think in a masjid it's a bit more serious. You're a bit more. At the end of the day, it's the house of Allah. So you have to be very respectful. Not that we're lacking adab or respect here in the Zawiya, but it's a step down. So I think even when we go to the masjid together, we don't interact the same we do when we're in the Zawiya.
We don't talk. We shouldn't, or we don't
Yes.
talk about like worldly business. These
Yes.
sort of things
Correct.
we're supposed to refrain from doing,
Correct.
at
Yes.
least in the masjid.
Yeah.
But it's about what each kind of institution, like what's the purpose of each institution, right? They're two different institutions. If you look at the Islamic community, the masjid has always been the center, the most important infrastructure for the community, right? The first thing you have to do is you have to have kind of a communal prayer, the Jummah prayer, that has to take place in that masjid. If you have children, they have like Quran classes or maktab that might take place in the masjid. So you have these like basic ilm and introductory kind of knowledge that takes place. And then of course you have Tarawih, you have Ramadan, you have iftar sometimes, and there's now aspect of a masjid which is expanded to community gatherings, that sort of thing, right? So it's so important. If you were to learn fiqh or aqeedah a lot of the masajid, they have classes on those, right? So you go there and you learn from Shaykh. They'll teach you through, they'll probably go through a book and you learn. But if you want to learn about how do I cultivate virtue, how do I cultivate my heart, how do I purify my heart, how do I improve my character,
like a training ground,
how do I remove bad habits, you know, this area has always been the area that is served by the institution of a Zawiya, right?
Nice.
And that's why it's so important in
Yes.
Islamic communities. And if you take away that institution, then people have nowhere to experientially, like, you know, develop and cultivate themselves from an experiential perspective. It's not just, and we say we learn through books. You know, we'll read Imam al-Ghazali, and you know, we'll do some lessons. But the main thing that we're doing is not intellectual but experiential,
Yes.
right?
Fiqh and Aqeedah, intellectual.
They're intellectual,
Yeah.
you know, but of course you have to practice the fiqh and you have to implement it, right? But the tasawwuf is like the purification of the heart. Is something that is, you have to do it, otherwise it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have.
No.
Correct.
Like, actually, I have knowledge of this is how many diseases of the heart. I'll tell you exactly how to. ChatGPT can do that.
Yeah.
You gotta
Yeah.
work on it.
You have
Yeah.
to work on it.
Yeah.
And so how do you work on it? Experientially, you have to foster a sense of love, a sense of you know, communal love with each other, but also through doing nasheeds together, you know, through doing dhikr together, through serving each other, through feeding people.
Wow.
And that's what brings this light in your heart that helps you overcome your nafs. And it's stronger than what your nafs can do. And that is the light that helps you kind of
Allah.
purify
What
it.
do they say, like, even in business, even in your sort of, you know, what you want to follow a professional career, what's the first thing they tell you? What do they say?
You got a shadow, right?
Fundamental.
Mentor, yeah.
Thank you. Find a mentor.
Find a good mentor.
Good mentor. Someone who's qualified. Someone who's been in business 30 years, has experienced all the pitfalls. And then when you listen to that person, what can you do? You'll make sure that you don't fall into the same mistakes by your own choice. I was going to use volition, but I'm not going to use the word because you guys will pick on me, right?
Please, small words.
You won't fall into the same mistakes because you can see where people before you have gone and fallen, and you can just divert and try and be more successful as you. What does your father want? What does your father want? Your father wants for you to be better than he ever was.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
So, and he's ideally, in the sense, supposed to be your greatest mentor.
Yes.
And then in religion, who's your mentor? Who is it?
Well, in religion, but there's different aspects of religion, right? So if you have a marital issue or a fiqh question, you go to a scholar that has studied fiqh and has knowledge of fiqh, knows the intricacies, the different, you know, kind of your specific scenario, where that fits in. And you know, they can teach you as well. They can increase your knowledge, general knowledge, but also answer specific questions. The same thing with Aqeedah. You know, so for fiqh, for example, I would go to the Masjid. If we have, you know, our Shaykh there would give us kind of answers. Historically, that's what I did. When it came to Aqeedah, there was specific people that I knew of. You know, people that used to run classes. You know, we used to have like a Sayyid Nursi class at Melbourne.
Nice, for sure.
You know, so those are people that they specialize in Aqeedah, right? So if you have questions like, you know, what does it, like, what are the attributes of God? Is God this? Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of the philosophical questions that people have, like, you know, why is there bad things happening in the world if God is so merciful? You know, those are really, really important questions that many people struggle with. And so you have to go to someone who specializes in that area.
Right.
And they'll tell you, they'll philosophically and logically explain to you
Like the problem of evil and this
exactly how these things work.
Yeah.
So if you want to cultivate virtue, improve your character, defeat bad habits, who do you go to?
Well, see, and on this point as well, you know, someone will come to you and say, "Oh, but if I just study Aqeedah, I just study Hadith, or, you know, the fiqh, whatever, that should be enough, right? You know, what else do I need? I know I've learned what to believe in. I've learned what to halal haram. That's done, right? What else, you know, do I need to do to increase my iman?" And subhanAllah, just thinking of stories that happened to me recently when I was at work. So I was as you know, I regularly visit prisons, and I was speaking to one person, subhanAllah, in incarceration, and he was a young guy, and then so he asked me for some advice, and then I said, look, I said, how's your relationship with Allah? And he said, yeah, it's good, I pray 5 times a day in jail and I fast. And I was like, that's good, that's really good, mashallah. For somebody in jail to use their time wisely, that's not very common, subhanAllah. Then I said, okay, so but why do you worship Allah? What drives you and motivates you to worship Allah? He said, oh, I don't know, I just kind of just pray and fast and that's it. And I said, have you ever thought about worshipping Allah out of love? And he looked at me and goes, no. So I was shocked. I was like, subhanAllah, man, wow. People actually don't understand, like there's no concept of love in their minds. So then I said to him, subhanAllah, I said, the only thing that will motivate you to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get up in the middle of the night and make wudu and pray 2 rak'ahs of qiyam al-layl is love. You worship Allah out of fear, that's not sustainable. You will burn out. You worship Allah because, you're just doing what you're told, you will burn out, right? But you worship Allah out of love, sincere love. You yearn, you can't wait to be with Him. You yearn to meet Him. You can't stand not being with Him. When you have that, subhanAllah, or when you even taste that, then, subhanAllah, that's when worship, then you're on a different level, subhanAllah.
Can I tell you a personal story? We talked about this, but I didn't tell you a secret story which happened to me.
Okay.
So you were talking about love of Allah, right? Now what about the love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Just on this, one day I was cooking and I wanted to taste something. So it was on my left hand, and I was about to put it in my mouth, and then I took it with my hand and I put it in my mouth with the right hand. And in my mind I said, this is because I love the Rasul and because he told me to eat with my right hand.
Allah.
Like at that moment I just put it. I could have just put it in my mouth. Like, what's the big difference? I went against my natural instinct and I did what pleases Allah and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is some of the values that I learned in the Zawiya. The it's not love in like an airy-fairy way. It's love with depth, meaning, purpose, connection to tradition, connection to something real. Yeah, it's not something that it's just a light concept. It's love is so it's so pervasive throughout the Quran and the Sunnah.
Small words, please, Karam.
So love.
Come on.
I'm just gonna.
He's lived the longest. He knows all the words.
You guys are.
Simple words.
Love.
Karam's like, I'm not even deep in my bag right now.
Basically, love is everywhere.
Yeah.
And you were saying how we could worship Allah as if we see Him. Out of love, basically. Subhanallah.
That does one thing. That doesn't mean there is no fear at all, because there's a balance to things. But I think in this day and age, where if someone becomes practicing, usually they get very motivated. Let's give da'wah, and everyone they see, fear Allah and Jahannam. Like, what are you doing?
Like shaming, basically.
Yes, shaming, and
That's such a good point.
just putting fear in people is. It's not like you said, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the whole concept of fear is no. But love is something that's been neglected by a lot of people, especially in this day and age. So we need to, I guess we're trying to revive the love, because that's is one of the main drives that makes you like you said, get up at night and pray tahajjud, cold weather, cold water, and winter. We know how cold it gets here.
And no disrespect to David Goggins, I'm sure that works for him, right? But you can't go David Goggins with Allah. It's not sustainable, right? It's not a 40k marathon, where you just keep running. Sorry, 400k for him. I'm sorry, David Goggins. No, don't disrespect you if you're watching this. But it's this Allah subhanahu has made this deen easy, and He's made the path. The path is, I'm not going to say it's easy. The path is, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not leave you on a path without giving you a guide, right? Allah has put guides on this earth around for people who are seeking Allah. Because if you seek Allah, Allah will make that path easy for you. If you don't seek Allah, or if you're trying to get to Allah for other motives, right? You have an agenda. I want Allah because I want something out of this. I want some sort of transaction out of this. then that path won't be easy. And that can actually be dangerous. And people, subhanAllah, will go on this path trying to get something out of Allah. And I've seen this so many times. They end up burning out and they fall out of deen completely, subhanAllah.
It's a balance, right? Like some people, they have that connection with Allah, but they're not taking it very seriously, and so then they need that fear element, to help motivate them, but I feel like the approach that's taken in our community is it leans on that scenario way too much, and I think that there's so many people that are kind of distanced from the religion. They don't find it that attractive, especially in comparison to alternatives in this society, and beating them with a stick is not going to really do anything. So that's when they need that element of love, right? And so if I speak in my own kind of experience, what I found is I was in that position where I didn't find deen that it seems like rules. It seems like, like, why don't you do that? Like a lot of the khutbahs
It seems very common. It
like
seems a very common experience around among people, subhanAllah.
Yeah, a lot of the khutbahs I listen to, I just go out of the khutbah and say like, man, like,
subhanAllah,
I suck. Like, you know what I mean? I don't feel very motivated.
One of the advices that my Shaykh told me in a very difficult moment in my life recently, he said, CD, never be extreme. Always be balanced. Don't go too far, don't go too less, but be balanced. And that's guided me through a lot of things. I would say it's quite successfully.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if in when we became practicing, as everyone had the point where became practicing, like it was a switch, right? It was like you kind of.
It was like you
somewhat,
you could see the.
Maybe you're forced to practice, so you would pray, you would think. But then there was a point that you wanted to pray.
Yes.
Like there's that click because you want to. But I forgot what I was going to say.
No, that's so correct. The thing is, what attracted me, so I would see it, I would be like, oh man, these are just rules and limitations. What everyone else is doing in society seems so fun and attractive. So I wasn't that attracted to it. Then the main things, if you look at throughout the history and you look at the graph, the main things that really kind of charged my my deen is meeting people and whose character reflected the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yes, I had the same experience.
Or elements of it at least. And you look at this person and you think, wow, I've never seen someone who I can't imagine this person being angry.
Yeah.
I haven't seen someone who's so kind.
Yeah.
And that really pulls you.
Yeah.
And a lot of the moments in my life where I've had these shifts away have been just from character and love for that character, which is based on my love because of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how that person's character reflects an aspect of the.
What I was saying, it came back.
Nice.
It came. So basically, you were mentioning the extreme, yeah. So I was saying, when you became practicing, for me personally, I became practicing. Yes, you wanted to pray, but you went on the extreme end, and now everything was extreme. You wanted the highest of everything, the most praise. But you burn out sooner or later. You burn out. Sooner or later you slow down, and then you do. Or praying is hard, or sunnah, you start leaving sunnah. If you've on the balance from the start, then
it's really common.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen to a lot of people in all areas where they'll go really, really hard, and then you can see the cliff, right?
Yeah.
And this is where being connected to someone who's an expert, has scholarly expertise in the cultivation of the heart, how to keep the heart connected, how to be consistent. And
has gone through that path as well.
Has gone through that path themselves, and learned from someone who went through that path and learned. So there's this 1400-year accumulation of this knowledge, a chain of which accumulates knowledge every time, and this is where this made a huge difference. I struggle in maintaining consistency. Like I really struggle with it. I can do something for 2-3 days and then I'll just drop it. But after interacting with the scholars, the advice you get is very systematic. Okay, you find it hard to read Quran? No worries, just read one page. But no matter what happens, you know, just have a minimum, even if the minimum is 1 ayah. Just have a minimum, but aim for reading 1 page.
Yeah.
And then, you know, once they see you are kind of consistent in that 1 page, because you have no excuse, right? If you can't read 1 ayah, like, you could just pull out your phone and be like, yeah, just reminding you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they see you being consistent in that, and they're like, okay, try 2-3 pages.
I got Allah Samad. You're ready for number 2.
The next thing you know, your capacity to worship and have consistency is actually increasing consistently over time, as opposed to going straight up and then.
Yes.
Also having good people. Sorry.
One of the things that every human being would know internally but never always admit on their tongue is when you advise someone, most people don't want to take advice, right? Nobody wants to, like, if you give advice, it's like unsolicited. But what I love about the Zawiya is it's all about how do you give advice without even saying it. It's like it's just through suhbah meaning companionship. Just by being in the presence of other brothers who are on the same path, and basically the mentor or your Shaykh or someone who has, like you said, gone through all of this. You expect that when you ask someone, my teacher, give me this advice, and it won't be literally do this, but it'll just be take it easy, or something like that. And then 1, 2, 3 days, by the permission of Allah, like, you see literally what you were searching for manifests. Clicks. It just works.
One thing we have at the Zawiya is a big importance is the companionship.
That companionship.
It's sometimes people say, don't sit around and just speaking and just having tea and it's bad, wasting time.
You're wasting time.
But
this and this.
how much has it personally, on a personal level, how much has it helped us having good brothers around on the same? It's the same. It's not just in Deen. The same concept applies everywhere. For example, if you were to take the sport, an athlete, for example, if you go everyday training 4 hours, 6 hours a day, again, if you talk about extremes, you burn out. But then being on a in the wasat, in the center, then it's sustainable. But then having people on the same mission who wants to go training with you is different. Now it becomes easy and fun. So it's the same thing we're sharing. We're on a journey right now. It's not a. We're not a. There's a saying that goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far,
go together.
Go with people. Go together.
Go together.
So
it's like, when they say, like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, then have your circle of people who are entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
So in the same way, like, it brings me back to the original point of the institutions and their purpose in the community. If you want to be a hafiz of the Quran, like, you can go to the Masjid who have the maktab or the program of hafiz, and you have other people who are doing it with you, and it motivates you to do it.
Big time.
If you want to understand fiqh, you go to the Masjid and you go to those classes, and you have so many other people that are studying fiqh. You can ask them. If you want to cultivate your heart, if you want to cultivate virtue, if you want to purify your heart, you go to an institution where everyone else has the exact same goal to do the same thing.
So the Zawiya is basically like, what are we talking about? Some of the values of the Zawiya, we've just mentioned so many of them. It encapsulates all of these things: love, light, knowledge, companionship, mentorship, support.
Love.
Love was the first thing.
You need too much love.
I need more love.
But these are basically what we mentioned. Are basically some of the values that the Zawiya brings. Another reason why we've called it the Zawiya Podcast is because we want to share this with you.
Yes.
We've got so much to share, so much love, so much experience from all of these people, these beautiful brothers here, that we really believe that could benefit everyone, including yourself, the community. That's...
Well, it's like, when people usually find out the importance of a Zawiya when they go overseas and they travel to these countries, Somalia, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all of these places have Zawiyas. That's where people interact with it. Turkey. But, you don't have to do that. We're trying to share that kind of message without you having to have that, once in a lifetime of experience of someone in the community in overseas, and they take you to Zawiya, and then you're like, oh wow, why don't I have this at home?
Ooh.
So
It's an invitation.
yes, that's
Allah.
part of it as well. But on that point, like, what are some of the kind of specific experiences that you felt? I think we talked about a lot of them, but
Yeah, how about some more specific spiritual experiences? Yeah.
well, like for example, in my experience, right? If you look at for me when I was overseas, and I was so amazed by these gatherings, and the closest I've ever had to that gathering was, when we do dhikr in Eid,
Allah.
in Eid, so I used to sit when we used to do dhikr in Eid. What's it called?
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah.
التلبية.
Talbi.
Yeah. So that's like the only time I've participated in an environment where everyone is doing it out loud.
Oh no,
And
sorry, it's just called takbirat. It's just called
Takbirat.
sorry,
Yeah.
my brain just.
That was the first time, and I was like, man, this is so cool.
Yeah,
I
it
wish we
was,
could do it
yeah,
more.
yeah.
Like I
SubhanAllah.
loved it. I was like,
This is such a simple thing, subhanAllah, but
Such
it
a simple
goes
thing.
such a long way, subhanAllah.
and then when I went overseas, I was like, this is amazing. You have so many people, the electricity, everyone's singing together.
And you just look, if you're when you look at it from Islamic perspective, when you have something good, you want to share it with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you have something, you don't just from an Islamic perspective, we don't keep things to ourselves. We love to give, we love to share,
Correct.
and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so when I came back here, I was like, we need to have something like this here.
Subhanallah.
How do people not know about this? Is like one of the most
Subhanallah,
fundamental principles of
subhanallah.
how an Islamic community is maintained.
Subhanallah.
It's been proven throughout the last 1400
Yeah,
years. If
subhanallah,
you
yeah.
want to preserve Islamic values and community and virtue, you have to have this
This is the
institution.
This is the path.
Exactly. So when we built this Zawiya,
Mm.
that was that
Imagine it's funny.
that goal coming to fruition.
Subhanallah.
So no longer does that gathering have to be a once in a lifetime
Yeah.
It's just part
thing.
of the fabric
It's
of who you
it's
are.
a part of
Yeah.
every week. No longer do I have to go somewhere where there's 100 people, but I don't know any of them.
Mm.
Now I know all of them, and I interact with them, and they're part of us going together on the path of cultivating virtue. And of course you then learn from scholars, and you have this kind of personal relationship
Yes,
with
yes.
them. So all of that together really fosters the sense of love, which
Mm.
is really, really.
It's not something you can measure, Sayyidi Taha. It's not measurable. It's
No.
just
You can feel it. You can feel
You
it.
feel it.
Ah, I'll tell you. I've got a spiritual experience.
Love to hear
It's so this is was it last week or the week before? So I was out with my brother-in-law, and we decided to stop by to get some ice cream, man. So it's a very nice place. I'm not gonna say the name because I'm not gonna sponsor anything.
tell us quietly afterwards.
Definitely. Yeah.
We'll go after from here. We'll go there.
Yeah, maybe not. So then I'll tell you why. So we go inside, and then just ice cream. Like, I'm not that big of a fan of ice cream, but I was like, why not? So we go look at the flavors, and the flavors are exotic, man. Like, just wow. And then something just catches, like, just gets my eyes. There's a little flicker, and I'm like, what's that? And I see raspberry white chocolate. Oh my goodness! It already began. Subhanallah. Electric current went straight to my brain. I felt something, subhanAllah. I went to the lady and I was like, I need to try this. And I was like, can I try this? And she gave me a thing of what it was.
That's sorry, before you can, that's one thing. Abdurahman, he goes to an ice cream shop. There's 50 flavors. He will try every single one.
I need to know what's good, man. I'm not gonna buy if I don't like it.
I
need
would
to know
be
if
with
it's
him,
good,
and I'm cringing. I'm like, yalla, pick one and just go. I'll pay for
I
it.
need to know if it's good, man. I will try every single thing until I find
Can I
out.
try this? Can I try this? Can I try this?
No, but surely once you do that once, then you already know what all the facts.
Yeah, but he forgets.
No,
He forgets.
no,
The next time he goes, he's like,
no.
I forgot which one to take.
No two flavors are the same. Trust me, they're all different. So I tried that raspberry white chocolate, and oh my god, it was even better than it looked. That already sent me into some sort of state. Anyways,
And that was the spiritual experience.
hold on, no, not yet. Then I was like, okay, this is it. I'm just gonna grab this ice cream and that's it. Then my brother-in-law he goes and he points. He's like, hey, what's this? And that catches my eye. I was like, what's that? And then I asked later, I'm like, what's this? And she goes, that's Kinder Bueno. I was like, oh my goodness, dude. I was like, I need to try this as well. So she got me a spoon. I tried that as well. whatever current electric shock I felt, this was times 20. This sent me into another galaxy. I was like, oh my goodness, dude, I can't handle this. This was insane. Just when I thought it was over, my brother looks at me, and I'm like, no. And looks at me, I'm like, no, I can't. He's like, he goes to the lady and he's like, get him 2 scoops. I was like, no, I can't do this. She gets these massive orbs, like planets. It was bowl-sized scoops, man. Raspberry white chocolate and Kinder Bueno on the cone, dude. Man, she gave him the cone. I was frozen, man. I'm in shock. I'm like, whoa, where do I start, dude? I take my first lick. Oh my goodness, man. I was gone, dude. I wasn't myself anymore, man. I was somewhere else, dude. The first thing I remember was Bismillah start and Alhamdulillah end.
What was that?
And everything between was just gone.
So this was
Annihilation. This was mine. But look, in honesty, what?
Wait, was that actually your? That's
Spiritual
what the story was.
No. Look, yeah, but hold on. Wait, guys, wait.
It's like no,
Wait,
yeah.
All of the story, just have some ice cream
Wait for
and
the moral story.
don't worry
Guys,
about
guys.
anything.
No, but guys, the
Just
moral
wasted
story.
5 minutes of my life, man.
That was a 5. Yeah, was it 5? It's probably 4 minutes. We'll check.
Maybe
We'll
10
check.
minutes of just listening to. I was like, what's going on?
Hold on. So moral story was, didn't have me thinking, subhanAllah. And this is actually my brother-in-law, he told me this. And he was saying, Alhamdulillah, he's like, isn't ice cream just the greatest thing that Allah created? And I was like, yeah. And they made me think, subhanAllah, this is one of the blessings that Allah will actually ask you for, if you weren't grateful for. SubhanAllah, I am so grateful that Allah created ice cream. It's such a blessing, subhanAllah. But then think about all the other blessings that Allah's given us.
فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
I think about gravity. Like
SubhanAllah.
a few months ago, I was like, thank you Allah for the blessing of gravity. You guys laughed, but like if you didn't have gravity, like we wouldn't be sitting here. We'd be floating.
Yeah, but
We're not gonna laugh.
I've never thought of that. That's
Yeah.
actually crazy.
Thank you Allah for the blessing of friction. Otherwise, if we drive, we'll just be flying.
Yeah, that's true as well.
That's
I'm
very
saying, like,
valid.
you know?
That's very valid. That's after. We're not gonna laugh at that. Definitely not. After hearing ice cream story about Kinder Bueno and
It was so good.
what was it? Raspberry vanilla,
white chocolate.
white chocolate.
Oh my.
Gravity is
days,
definitely
man.
something complete.
I've got a. We might cut this, but we'll see. Shout out to Sweet Domain Kinder Bueno
It was,
flavor.
no, it was Augustus, but yeah, Augustus. It was
But the what do you call it, the donut balls, whatever you call those, lukmadis.
Oh yeah,
Luqmanis?
Luqaymat we call it.
Oh, yeah,
You remember Luqaymat? Anyway, but Kinder Bueno flavor. Thank you for that.
Is this whole thing just a paid ad for sweet for?
We'll give it to them for free.
No,
Ah,
we're probably gonna cut that because
We'll cut nothing.
if we're gonna do shout outs, then we need to have a sweet domain in front of us right now.
I think after hearing
Put it in
this,
front of me, we won't be there for long.
no. I
I'm just
think
saying.
after hearing this, they'll keep supplying us every episode. So stay tuned for
really?
that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah, this whole thing's a paid ad just for Sweet Domain, by the way. So you keep it coming, yeah.
Anyway, Jazakallah
Stop, by the way,
khair.
bro.
Thank you, everybody. Jazakallah khair for all of your inputs. It's been great sharing this story, this combined story with all of you. And we look forward to all the future episodes we have to meet all of you and to share what we've learned. And yeah, Jazakallah khair.
Also, let us. We're gonna be here. We can discuss anything. Obviously, we don't have much.
Ideas, yeah.
Let us know what you
Yeah.
guys want to hear. Whatever
Guests.
topics and guests you want to see, or
Ice cream
we could
flavors as well.
asking what's your favorite ice cream flavor.
Yeah,
that's a good
Guys, in your
podcast.
comments, yeah, tell me what's your favorite ice cream flavors and why it's raspberry white chocolate and Kinder Bueno.
Why?
Right?
And why it sent you to?
Why it is.
Yeah, why it is, yeah.
He starts there.
And
100%,
did
yeah.
they
Sets
have any
expectations.
spiritual states after having?
Yeah,
Of
sure.
course, that has to come with ice cream, or else
Yeah, we
You
can
know,
have that as well.
you're a good salesman.
Thank you. I like ice cream.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.